Hi everyone, welcome to Veru. So today we're looking at Veru, and they just recently released their financial results, and yes, I did read through most of it, and I did listen to the conference call, and there were some interesting things there. It talks about the viability of the company, especially those financials, in this kind of present time where they're burning a lot of cash, and the biggest question is how they're going to fund everything, and also did they talk about any updates on the COVID-19 treatment? Which is why a big reason of why many of us are invested in the company. So I'll talk about any the updates that the CEO gave regarding the sabizabulin treatment. He didn't really say that much more than we really wanted because there's not much that they can say. It was a bit more tight-lipped because usually I'm quite familiar with the CEO being very optimistic, saying quite a lot, but this time he was actually very tight-lipped. It's like the FDA either talked to him and said, hey, don't say that much, or maybe he's feeling a bit cautious, so it's hard to say, but he was just like, oh, there's nothing much I can say. And I was like, oh, that sounds very different to how he was in the past, where he was very open in disclosing anything the FDA said to him. There was one thing I think that might have been new in terms of what he said. So if we go to this transcript, it says, to recap, we have submitted regulatory data packages and requests for emergency use authorization on an international level to the European Union, the UK, Australia, Switzerland, Canada, and as well as South Korea. So I think Switzerland and South Korea is probably more or less new. Like, I don't think I heard much about Switzerland before, but in a sense, the company might have just really not made a big deal out of it. But in terms of that, there's kind of like a lot of stakes in the fire, and they only really need one of them to really approve, and things could look quite nice. So that's one thing. It's not hugely reliant on FDA, but it is in a sense quite heavily, reliant on FDA. So, but if any of these decide they're going to approve much earlier than the FDA makes their decision, then that could be quite interesting. In terms of a time frame, someone did ask the CEO if they knew how long the FDA is going to take, and he said he didn't know. So that's one thing. There's no timeline about it. There is a bit of extra that he also said. So he said, we're also in various stages of discussion with regulatory agencies in countries to obtain regulatory emergency expedited authorization, and it was for Israel, Singapore, Egypt, and South Africa. So there's a few countries in behind the scenes that they're working on as well. In terms of the infectious disease team, like he did talk about how big the team was. So they have this dedicated team consists of 16 employees, 52 contractors. So that's one thing as well. They've got a lot of people in this infectious disease team that is just ready. The minute an approval comes through, they are ready to act and go for it, basically. So that's more or less what he kind of talked about, and yeah, I think there's not really like that much more that he really said that really gives you a lot more comfort, because there's not really much he can say. Like, at the end of the day, it's a waiting game, and there's not much we can really do except just wait. Like what he said kind of had a nice impact on the share price, because after that the share price shot up to like $6.43 on as the high for that day. But of course, a lot of people took their profits, and the stock ended up at $5.82, which is still okay. I think in a sense it stops the momentum of the stock sliding, and it kind of gives it some positive momentum going forward, because there's a lot of things going on in terms of that. And I think the one thing that also reassured everyone was the viability of the company. So if we go back to those financial results, there's a few parts that I think you need to be interested in it to actually understand how the company is going to be viable financially. So in terms of their revenue, their total net revenue for the year decreased to 39 million, and that's down from 61 million, which was not a good sign. But apparently, they have made many steps to address that, and things are going in a positive direction again. This revenue mainly comes from the FC2 female condom. So in a sense, they have actually a pretty decent business around that, but they just have to keep it going. And basically, that produces quite a bit of money to help fund their operations. So the gross profit was $30 million from that, and that was down from 47 million. And you can kind of get the idea that, hey, it's still a very important part. So we need to know, hey, that this business is still viable as well, because before sabizabulin, the COVID-19 treatment, gets approved, we kind of need these financials for this company to continue to thrive. And then they also have their other product, which is in taffy, which is basically FDA approved oral once day product for benign prostatic hyperplasia. So that's for men who have enlarged prostate, and apparently that in their expectations, that could generate as much as 200 million on its full potential. But they're still at the start of things basically, so we don't know how lucrative it is yet. But if they could just get a decent run rate on that to just keep the company going as well, that and the female condom business is going to be quite good for the company itself. That will just literally help fund everything. So there is some emphasis in a sense to keep track of that, to make sure those two products, which are FDA approved on the market selling right now, that they continue that way, and they do so in a good way, just to make sure that the company is viable. They did talk about that they made a new platform which can actually sell directly to customers. So in a sense, that could give them better margins, and also it can just help make sure their sales do not decline as much in the future. So that's one thing about it as well. And then we'll look at the cash equivalents. I've got $80 million, and that was down from $122 million from the prior quarter. So you get the idea. The past quarter, they burnt about $40 million. So if you look at that, the fact that they have $80 million, then that only gives them really enough cash for 2 quarters, which is in a sense worrying. But that's only worrying until you actually heard more of their comments, which was their first comment was a lot of it was investing into the company for that quarter, which was about building that team and all those things. So their cash burn probably won't be as high in the following quarter, and also their revenue probably for the next quarter is going to be a lot better, particularly with the female condom business and also the Intaffy. It's like those two products, if they can get going really well, then those revenues are going to help the company reduce the amount of cash that they're going to have to take out from the 80 million that they have right now. And I think that's probably one of the most important parts. So if we look at the net revenues, you can see where it dropped off for the recent quarter. The female condom business only brought in $2.5 million, and if you compare that to last year's quarter where it brought in $15 million, you can see that it actually makes a huge difference if they can actually bring in some decent revenues. And that's the one thing. If you actually think about it in a sense that, hey, if this company actually took away their research and development costs, so like if we go to 2021, their gross profit was $47 million from the female condom business, and then they had $37 million in research and development costs. And basically, if you took away that $32 million, this company is actually quite a profitable company. but because they're pursuing so many different projects, or basically trials, for their products, they're spending so much money on trying to get this going, that we actually forget how actually successful their female condom business is. And that's one thing as well. There's quite a bit of success in the company that they should not neglect. So if they can get that going, and get the revenue numbers back up, and along with their new product as well, then I think things are going to look a bit better on that side of things. So for the time being, I don't think there's too much of a worry, because they should have, assuming their run rate for each quarter is not going to be the 40 million burn. I assume they actually have, at least 3 to 4 quarters of money to keep them going, at least for them to figure things out. And yeah, I think that's the main points that I got out of the conversations anyway. There was an additional question around how long would it take them to perform a new trial if the FDA asked them to perform a new trial, and the CEO was suggesting somewhere around 3 to 6 months. So ideally, the COVID-19 treatment is approved, and then they do a trial alongside it, or else if they have to do a trial before they get approval, I'm not too sure it's going to be as relevant after that, and it's probably not going to be great for the share price. So hopefully FDA kind of sees that, hey, this treatment is actually quite, potentially quite helpful to patients. So there's kind of a reason to approve it, particularly with kind of a low amount of alternative treatments available, at least effective treatments available. So there's a good reason, definitely for the FDA to approve it. But at the end of the day, we don't know how long the FDA is going to take to review these things, and we don't know how they're going to decide. So that's the thing. You've got to consider about the rest of the company around that situation. That, hey, if they do not get approval, then there's going to be a heavy reliance on their female condom business and that prostate enlargement pill, that helps soothe it, basically. Apart from that, I would say, there's a lot of things going on, but we also have to make sure that the company is viable, and when things might be approved. There's a lot of countries that are reviewing these things, and hopefully they don't take too long to approve. Until then, I think that's what I really have to say. If you've got any questions or comments, post below. Until then, good luck investing.